Good day everyone, this is Jason Marikit and I am the leader and the first presenter of Group 3. So our topic is all about the moral theories and mental frames. Okay, so moral theories are philosophical frameworks that explain why our actions are right or wrong, and it is providing systematic guidance for moral decision making based on principles like duty, consequences, or character. But before we start our discussion, let's watch first the video entitled "Would You Save a Boy from Drowning?" It's all about the moral theories and mental frames.
Once upon a time, there was a boy who was born into a family of simple tailors in the middle of sub-Saharan Africa. The boy's father wanted him to continue the family business, but the boy wanted a better life and one night decided to leave his home and go to Europe. To cross the sea, the boy built himself a raft, but once he left the shore, there was only a little wind and it didn't take long for his supplies to run out. And there he was, hungry and lonely, floating in the middle of the Mediterranean Sea. Imagine you live on the coast of southern Europe and one morning read about the boy's fate in a local paper. Should you yourself try to save him? Four influential philosophers, Aristotle, Mill, Kant, and Nietzsche, can help us answer this and other difficult moral questions with their respective theories. Virtue theorists like Aristotle ask how to live a good life. The best life, according to him, is the life of someone who demonstrates excellence in aspects of a virtuous character, the capacities for emotion, theoretical ideas, and practical wisdom. Aristotle would argue that if helping the boy is a manifestation of a personality that's virtuous, then you should save him because being a person of good character is what matters. What that exactly means differs for every one of us. If you are rich and powerful, saving the boy could be easy. It might still be the right thing to do, but it doesn't reveal much of your personality and hence isn't particularly virtuous. If you have little to no means, your decision to save the boy is much harder. If you still try to do so, then this truly reveals character, is virtuous, and is something you should probably try doing. Utilitarians such as John Stuart Mill ask which action increases well-being for most people. So when faced with a choice, they do what seems most beneficial to most people, as if they could calculate what consequences lead to the highest net happiness. When thinking about saving the boy's life, you should consider all the happiness the boy and his family get, the joy it may bring you, and the benefits for society now and for generations to come. This you then compare with what else you could be doing, known as your opportunity costs. For example, instead of risking your life at sea, you could work the day in a coffee shop and donate the money you make to an effective charity which then saves 2 kids from starvation somewhere else. Comparing the two options, you decide not to save the boy, but instead work, donate, and double the total potential well-being of humanity. Some call this effective altruism. Deontologists like Immanuel Kant focus on the intent rather than consequences. They believe in universal moral laws such as don't lie, don't steal, don't cheat. The golden rule is the so-called categorical imperative. Our decisions are then morally right when they can become a rule everyone else should follow. If you help the boy because it makes you look good, your intentions are wrong because you treat him as a means to an end, and we don't want to live in a world in which false heroism is a universal moral norm. If you save the boy because you want to live in a world in which helping those in need is always the right thing, then you should do that. You should even do so if you have reason to believe that the kid may end up taking advantage of your kindness. Friedrich Nietzsche would ask, what's in your own interest? He argued that self-interested behavior is morally right as it makes us stronger. And if we are stronger, so is society. Acting against your own interest is immoral because it hinders this development. So if you want to help the boy because you think that is good for you, do it. Help the boy. But if you think saving the boy could hurt you, don't. It's not your responsibility to save those who are too weak to help themselves. So what do you think? Did any of the four help you with that decision? If not, here is one more idea. Scholar Moshe Koppel made the interesting observation that utilitarians and Kantians don't use their own moral principles when trying to falsify each other's theories. Both rather appeal to a feeling, as if we all, inside us, actually know what's right and what's wrong. Kantians would say, you don't want to live in a world in which children die in the open because you decided to save two strangers instead. Such behavior just doesn't feel right. Correct? Utilitarians would counter, surely you wouldn't want to save, say, a psychopath from drowning who then go on to kill you and your family just because helping people is always right by principle. That just feels wrong, right? So now tell us, would you save the boy, and why? Is your decision based on the character you strive to become, an analysis of costs and benefits, behavior we want to see in the world, for your own self-interest, or does it maybe just feel right? Share your thoughts in the comments below. If you like how we explain complicated ideas in simple cartoon animation, you can support us. Visit patreon.com/sprouts. Just visit us, learn how it works and what's in it for you. We hope to see you there. And if you are a parent or educator, check out our website, sproutschools.com. There you can find this and other video lessons, additional resources, and classroom activities. If you found this helpful, check out our other videos and subscribe. If you want to support our work, join us on patreon.com/sprouts. For more information and additional content, visit sproutschools.com.
Alright, so the video taught us that how a simple scenario, a child drowning in shallow water, can easily force us to think deeply about what we should do, no? Even when it costs you something with clothes, time, effort. So the video challenged us to see that moral choices are not just easy or comfortable ones. It shows us how your mental frame or how you view your duty, your cost, your obligations affects what actions seems right. So relating to moral theories, we might see it through a utilitarian lens or utilitarian view. No, it shows what gives the greatest good, or save the child because life matters more than clothes. No, or the deontological view. No, you have a duty to help regardless of consequences. Or a virtue ethics view. Saving shows you have the courage, compassion, and a good character. So the video pushed us to question which moral frame you use when deciding what is right. No? Now, our general objective is to understand how moral theories and ethical frameworks help us distinguish right from wrong, and how they guide us in making moral decisions in our everyday life. In simple words, we will learn how these theories serve as our moral compass, no, or our guide, helping us choose actions that reflect good values and responsibility. So by the end of this lesson, we should be able to learn, first, define what an ethical framework is and explain its purpose in moral decision making. Second, identify and describe the different moral theories such as virtue ethics, natural law, deontological ethics, utilitarian ethics, and love and justice ethics. Third is explain how each moral theory gives us a unique way of knowing what's right or wrong. Then, analyze real life situations using these moral theories to justify ethical choices. Then, last, reflect on how these ideas shape your personal values and everyday decisions. So these goals will help us connect what we learn with how we actually live and make choices. And now we will move to our discussion. So first, introduction. Moral theories and mental frame are like our guide in knowing what is right and what is wrong. So they serve as our mental frames, no, or ways of thinking. So it can help us make good decisions in different situations. In life, we often face choices that test our values, like whether to tell the truth, to help someone in need, or to stand up for what's fair. So these moral theories help us think carefully about those choices and understand the reasons behind what we do. So in simple terms, being moral is not just about following rules. It's about having a good heart, using our mind to think critically, and showing kindness and fairness toward others. So by learning these moral theories and ethical frameworks, we can become more responsible, respectful, and understanding individuals, not just in school but in our daily lives as well. So what is an ethical framework? So it is a structured way of thinking about what is right or wrong. Then it helps people analyze moral problems and make ethical decisions. Then next is it acts as a guide to determine the best course of actions in a moral situation. So an ethical framework, it is a structured way of thinking about right from wrong, about right and wrong. So it helps people analyze moral problems and decide what's the best or most ethical action to take. Then, like for example, if a student finds a lost wallet, kung isa ka estudyante nawalaan or nadulaan sang wallet, should or ang nakakita, should they return it or keep it, balik ba nila or lahan na lang kuwaon, so dira na magsulod ang ethical framework. So ethical framework helps them think beyond self-interest and consider honesty, fairness and duty. So like i-guide sila sa ethical framework when they are unsure of what is right. So ibalik ba nila ang wallet or i-keep na lang nila. So ara na lang sa ila kung ano ila himuon. So the main purpose of an ethical framework is to distinguish right from wrong and guide human behavior. Next is it helps individuals and societies make fair, consistent, and justified decisions. Next is it encourage moral responsibility and critical thinking. So the main purpose gid kuno sa ethical framework is to help us to determine right from wrong and guide us our behavior. So it promotes fairness and consistency, so our decisions are not just emotional or biased. It also encourages moral responsibility, meaning we take ownership of our actions, and critical thinking, because we don't just only follow rules blindly, but we understand why something is right or wrong. For example, when deciding whether to share confidential information, we don't just think about the rules, no? But we also consider respect for others' privacy and trust. In ethics, there are two important moral questions. So first question, what ought I to do? So this is about the action you should take. Now, for example, should I help someone in need? Then next question is, what ought I to do so? So this question is about your motivation or reason behind the action. Are you helping because you care or because you want praise? These two questions remind us that morality isn't just about doing the right thing, but understanding why we do it. Now we will move on to the 5 main ethical frameworks. First, the virtue ethics. Second, natural law theory. Then, deontological ethics, utilitarian ethics, and last, love and justice ethics. So each one of these gives a different way of understanding moral behavior and how to act rightly in different situations. First, virtue ethics. It focuses on being a good person, not just doing good acts. It is founded by Aristotle. It teaches that moral behavior comes from practicing good habits or virtues like honesty, courage, kindness, and patience. Like for example, if you regularly practice telling the truth, honesty becomes part of who you are. So virtue ethics remind us that doing the right thing comes naturally when we have a good character. Next is the natural law theory, developed by Thomas Aquinas. It's based on the belief that moral rules come from nature or God's design. It says that every human has a natural purpose, like promoting life, doing good, and avoiding harm. So for example, protecting human life is a natural moral duty because it follows the purpose of life itself. So these theories common in laws that protect life and dignity, like opposing murder or injustice. Next is deontological ethics. It was developed by Immanuel Kant. It focuses on the duty and intention rather than the result. It teaches that we should do what's morally right simply because it's our duty, not because we will benefit. For instance, if you return a lost wallet because it's the right thing to do, not because someone will praise you, that's deontological thinking. It values honesty, fairness, and following moral rules, even if the outcome is not convenient. Then, utilitarian ethics. It was introduced by Jeremy Bentham and John Stuart Mill. It focuses on consequences. The best action is the one that produces the greatest happiness for the greatest number of people. For example, if a government makes a policy that benefits most citizens, like free healthcare, It's considered moral under utilitarianism. It teaches us to think about the effects of our actions on others and aim for the most positive outcome. Lastly, the love and justice ethics. Love and justice ethics centers on compassion, fairness, and care for others. It's often connected to Christian ethics and the teachings of Jesus, which emphasize loving your neighbor and showing mercy. This theory encourages selfless actions, helping others not because you will gain something, but because it's the loving and just thing to do. For example, volunteering to help victims of calamities reflects love and justice in action. Okay, to summarize, ethical frameworks serve as our moral guide in life. Each theory offers a different way of deciding what is right or wrong. First, the virtue ethics focuses on character. Next is the natural law theory follows nature and divine purpose. Deontological ethics values duty and rules. Utilitarian ethics looks at the consequences. Love and justice ethics emphasizes compassion and fairness. Understanding these theories help us think critically, act wisely, and become morally responsible individuals.
Right afternoon, everyone. My name is Divine, and I will be discussing the virtue of character ethics of Aristotle. So, the objectives are define an ethical person, explain virtue and happiness, describe Aristotle's idea of self-realization, understand happiness as fulfilling one's nature, and the summaries. So, first, who is an ethical person? So, according to Aristotle, the ethical person is virtuous, one who has developed good character or has developed virtues. A person who develops virtues by realizing and making use of their abilities and potentials, reaching their fullest capacity, which brings out genuine happiness. According to Aristotle, ang ethical person is isa ka tawo nga may ara siya develop good character and the practice sang virtues. So, ang amo na kuno nga tawo is someone who chooses to do what is right, kag ga-strive sa para maging best version of himself. So, what is virtue and happiness? Virtue means developing good character and practicing moral intelligence, while happiness is the joy of self-realization and fulfillment. So, ang virtue is ang may ara ka good character kag ginahimo mo kung ano gid ang tsakto, while ang happiness naman means arang you feel satisfied kag contented because ginhimo mo ang imong kung ano ang makapalipay simo, you've used your talents and become the best version of yourself. Aristotle's idea of self-realization and actualizing potential. So Aristotle believed that every human being is born with unique potentials and abilities. To live a good, meaningful life, a person must work to develop and use these potentials to the fullest. So, si Aristotle gapatid sa nga tanan kuno nga tawo nga ginbata di sa kalibutan may aragi kuno ta isa-isa ka mga unique nga potential kag abilities. So, para kuno makapamuhi ta sang meaningful nga life, sang nami nga life, sang satisfying nga life, ang isa daw ka tawo should work to develop para ang isa ko na katawo ma-work gid siya bala para mag-develop kag gamiton niya na ang iyang mga potential para maging best version sa iyang self, ganon. So, happiness as fulfillment of one's nature. True happiness, according to Aristotle, is achieved when a person lives to their true nature and purpose. It means using one's talents, practicing virtues, and striving to live a good and meaningful life that brings out peace and fulfillment. So, ang pagpatiyan ni Aristotle sa happiness, ang totoo nga happiness is makuha mo lang na sa if ang mga tao live in with harmony with their true selves. Nga ilagid totoo gid nga kagalingon kung sisinugid sila. It means using reason, paghimo sang maayo, kag gina-express gid ba lang ila nga best nga ilagid nga best. So when a person fulfills their nature by being virtuous, being wise, kag purposeful, dira na nila ma-experience ang tutuod nga kalipay kag contentment. So to summarize, ang Aristotle's virtue of ethics teaches that being ethical means developing good character and practicing moral virtues. Virtue helps people make the right choices and live balanced lives. True happiness is not found in pleasure but fulfilling one's purpose and reaching one's full potential. When a person uses their talents, live with virtue, and acts according to their true nature, they achieve real happiness and self-fulfillment. That would be all. Thank you.
Bright afternoon, everyone. My name is Arway Gulayan, and my topic is all about the virtue or character ethics of Aristotle. Virtue is the golden mean between two vices, the one of excess and the other of deficiency. So it means the virtue or good moral character lies in finding the balance between two extremes of behavior. Kaya ang excess is ng overconfident or padalos-dalos. Kay galapo ay mga confident. Tapos ang deficiency is means too little or ng pagiging duwag kag hindi sapat ang imo nga ginaobra. Cowardice and foolhardiness versus courage. One of Aristotle's famous example is courage. A coward lacks confidence and avoid all risks. Amo ni sa ang deficiency. Tapos ang a foolhardiness person takes unnecessary risk without thinking. Na amo naman ni siya ang exist ang padalos-dalos nang wala danay ginathink kung ano iya nga obrahon kay overconfident. It means the courage person is doing the right thing at the right time, what the right amount or bravery. And traits of a virtuous person. Aristotle says that the traits of a virtuous person are moderation and balance. He means that a good moral person acts with the right amount or of emotion and behavior, not too much and not too little. Moderation, avoiding extremes. A virtuous person does not go overboard or hold back too much. They find the middle ground between excess and deficiency. So, for example, a moderate person shows courage, not acting reckless or being cowardly. Balance is living a well-ordered life where emotion, desires, and actions are in harmony. A virtuous person knows when to speak, when to act, and when to stop. Moderation, it means not doing too much or too little, finding the right amount in how to act or how to feel. Ng ano siya, may self-control and avoiding extremes in behavior, emotion, or actions. Example, may work ka, tapos nang you work hard but may ara ka Japon time sa imong family, time to rest and to have fun, like may time management. virtue ethics is a framework or ethical decision making. Virtue ethics focuses on the character of a person rather than just the actions they perform. It emphasizes being a good person and developing positive traits or virtues that guide moral behavior. In this framework. Ethical behavior is defined as virtuous person would do in given situation. The approach looks at the motivation, intentions, and overall character behind actions, believing that ethics is about becoming the best version of oneself, a well-functioning and flourishing human being. It considers all aspects of human experience, emotion, thoughts, and action as important in shaping moral character. Virtue ethics is an optimistic and ideal-based approach that encourages individuals to cultivate good character and genuine moral motivation in all decisions and actions. So, it means that the virtue ethics is about becoming a good and moral person rather than just following strict rules or focusing only on result. It says that good actions came from good character. So if you have virtues like honesty, courage, kindness, and self-control, you will naturally make ethical choices. It focuses in your intention and motivation, not just the outcome. And the goal of the people become the best version of themselves to live a happy, meaningful, and morally good life. The virtue ethics is teach us that being ethical means developing and practicing good character traits every day.
Bright afternoon, everyone. My name is Althea Harris, and my topic is Virtue Ethics, Basic Types of Virtue. Virtue ethics focuses on the development of good character traits that enable a person to live a moral and fulfilling life. So according to Aristotle, there are two main types of virtue. First is intellectual virtue, and the second one is moral virtue. So first is the intellectual virtues. These virtues of mind which involve reasoning, understanding, and sound judgment. They help individuals to think wisely and make rational decisions. Intellectual virtues are good qualities of mind that help a person to think clearly and make wise decisions. So, for example, kung ang isa ka tawo nagagamit sa wisdom to solve some problem or good judgment sa pag-decide kung ano ang best nga himuon, they are showing intellectual virtue. It means why sila nagbase sa feelings but they think carefully and learn from experience before sila mag-decide. Moral virtue. This refers to the disposition or habit that leads a person to act well. Moral virtues guide behavior, helping individual to choose the right course of action in various situations. Moral virtues are good habits or attitude that help a person to do what is right and act properly in a different situation. For example, when someone shows honesty, kindness, or courage, they are practicing moral virtue. It means gina-train nila ilang nga kaugalingon maghimo sang maayo naturally. Aristotle believed that virtue is achieved through self-realization, the process of developing one's potential and acting according to one's true nature. When a person lives in harmony with their virtues, they attain happiness, which Aristotle regarded as the ultimate goal of human life. So, Aristotle believed that virtue is developed by knowing and improving your true self. Kung kilala ka, gina-develop mo ang imo nga kaugalingon na matuod, nagakat-on ka sang paghimo ka maayo. When you live according to your good character, ka ginagamit mo ang imo nga sakto nga abilidad, you can achieve true happiness nga ginatawag nga eudaimonia.
So, hi everyone! Today I'll be sharing something interesting about virtue as a mean and virtue ethics. So I'll make this simple and relatable so it's easy to understand. The number one is virtue as the golden mean. So let's start with the golden mean. This idea comes from the philosopher Aristotle. He said that virtue is about balance. Not too much, not too little, just the right amount. Think of it like cooking. If you add too little salt, it's bland, or too much, it can be ruined. But if it's balanced, it tastes just right. That's exactly how virtues work. So for number two, virtue between deficiency and excess. Aristotle explained that for every virtue there are two extremes. The one side is deficiency or too little of something, then the other side is excess, too much of it. So for example, courage is in between cowardice, or too little bravery and recklessness, or too much bravery without thinking. Generosity is between being stingy and being wasteful. So, being virtuous means finding that sweet spot in the middle where actions are just right for the situation. And for number three, examples of balance in virtues. So let's make it even more relatable with a few quick examples. So, example is honesty. Too little honesty is lying, and too much can be hurtful. So the virtue is being truthful but kind. The other example is confidence. Too little and you doubt yourself, or too much and you come off as arrogant. And the last example is the patience. Too little makes you easily irritated, then too much might make you passive. So, see, it's all about balance. So, Aristotle's idea reminds us that being good isn't about being extreme. It's about knowing how to act wisely and appropriately. Just like walking on a tightrope, you keep your balance to avoid falling into either extreme. That's why practicing virtues means being mindful of our actions and finding the golden middle in everyday situation. Thank you for listening.
I am Hinjeli Hosol, Virtue Ethics and Other Traditions. Confucian Virtues. Confucius emphasized two virtues, Jin or Rin and Li. Jin means humanness, human-heartedness, and compassion. Li means propriety, manners, or culture. So, example, ang tawo nga nagapakita sang Jin or makatao kag compassion might stop to help a stranger who has fallen. Kag ang tawo nga nagapakita sang Li or propriety and culture would know the proper way to address an elder or host a guest. Hinduism virtues. Hinduism emphasizes five basic moral virtues: nonviolence, truthfulness, honesty, chastity, freedom from greed. It also emphasizes mental virtues: calmness, self-control, self-settledness, forbearance, faith, and complete concentration, hunger for spiritual liberation. So, for example, practicing nonviolence or ahimsa means choosing not to harm any living being, and practicing self-control means consistently resisting the temptation to overindulge. Buddhism virtues. Buddhism also has its intellectual and moral virtues. From the Eightfold Path are the intellectual virtues of right understanding and right mindfulness, and moral virtues of right speech, right action, and right livelihood. So for example, ang sa katawo nagapakita sang right speech, paagi sa paglikaw sa mga libak, or mga masakit nga words kag insakto nga action paagi sa pagpili sang isa ka intellectual job or livelihood. Jesus Christ preached the virtues of love, mercy, and compassion, hunger for justice, patience, kindness, gentleness, self-control. St. Thomas Aquinas taught the theological virtues faith, hope, and love. Christian tradition teaches four cardinal moral virtues: namely prudence, justice, temperance, and fortitude. So for example, ang pagpakita sa fortitude means ang isa ka tawo nagapadayon sa paghimo sa insakto biskan mara sila great difficulty, and having a prudence means ginagamit nila ang rason to make wise decisions. Thomas Aquinas was an eclectic thinker who incorporated pre-existing philosophies and thought that the highest good, happiness, is inherently self-diffusing, or bonum diffusivum est means virtue naturally expresses itself through right action. So for example, ang isa ka teacher nga may virtue, sang generosity does not keep their knowledge sa ila kagalingon but actively share it sa iya mga estudyante, thereby diffusing or ginapalaptan niya ang goodness. George Gadamer interprets Aristotle's homologous to mean that distinctively human virtue is the actualization of a meaningful, refined, and civilized language, contrasting it with the vice of crude language. So for example, a political leader who consistently uses respectful, precise, kag thoughtful language sa komplikado nga mga issue, nagapakita sini nga virtue. While ang isa ka tawo who frequently resorts to profanity kag pag-insulto, nagapakita sang vice. The virtuous person did not inherit their virtues, neither were these virtues simply passed on to an individual automatically. An individual's personhood of virtue is a product of deliberate, consistent, continuous choice and practice of living the virtue of virtues. So for example, ang isa ka tawo nga genuinely patient, hindi tungod ginaburn sa sina, kundi ginapadayon niya ginapili to remain calm kag maintindihanon sa frustrating nga mga sitwasyon over sa along period.
Bright afternoon everyone. I want to tackle the question raised about virtuous ethics. First one, how to determine that traits are virtuous. To determine which traits are virtuous can be challenged. Virtues are often considered positive character traits that promotes individual and social well-being. However, its specific traits considered virtues can vary depending culture, historical, and philosophical context. Second one, are virtues universal across religions and culture? Virtues may not easily agreed upon across religions and culture. While some virtues like kindness and fairness may be wide recognition, other may specific to particular traditional difference, culture, and religions may prioritize different virtues reflecting their unique values and beliefs. Third one, machine tires. Ideas, culture shapes which virtues and virtues at valued. According to philosopher Alasdair MacIntyre, culture plays a significant role in sharing which virtues are valued. Virtues are not abstract ideas, but the embedded in the practice and traditions of particular communities. This perspective highlights importance of culture, context, and understanding virtues. Thank you.
Good day everyone, I am Jacqueline and today I will report about Saint Thomas Aquinas and his idea of natural law. Aquinas' view on morality and God's plan. According to Saint Thomas Aquinas, being good person is part of God's plan for every human being. He believed that morality is very important because it helps us live that kind of life that God wants for us. Even if a person doesn't not know the Bible or has never heard about God, God still give us reason or panghunahuna so we never know that what is right and what is wrong. That means even ordinary people, bisan wala kabalo sang mga sugo sang Diyos, may ara gihapon sang abilidad ang nga maghimo sang maayo. So, for Aquinas, being moral is following God's plan through reason. Concept of divine commandments and natural law. For Aquinas, both the divine commandments and the natural law teach the same thing: do good and avoid evil. The divine commandments, like Ten Commandments, come directly from God's revelation. Pero ang natural law ara na sa sulod sang tawo sa iyang kasing-kasing kag panghunahuna. Natural law means that God's moral law is already written within us. So even without reading the Bible, kabalo kita nga dapat maghimo sang maayo kag hindi magpasakit sa iba. In short, natural law is the moral wisdom of God inside every person. How people can know what is good using reasons. Aquinas said that reasons is the real key of people to understand God's eternal law. Through reasons, people naturally know that we must seek the truth about God, live peacefully with others, and avoid ignorance and do good. Amini ang ginatawag niya nga natural inclination. To good natural law nga hilig sang tawo nga maghimo sang maayo kag malikaw sang malain. That's why Aquinas said that reasons is God gift to guide us towards the right path. Kung ginagamit naton ang aton panghunahuna sa maayo, paagi sa ginatuman naton ang kabubutan sa Dios. So the summary is Aquinas believed that God's moral law lives in every person through reason. Natural law helps us know what is right even without divine revelation. Following natural law means living according to God's purpose and goodness. That's all. Thank you.
Hi everyone, my name is Raxnal D. Ibanez and I'm from Group 3. This is my report. Definition of natural law as ordinance of divine wisdom. Natural law is the ordinance of divine wisdom, which is made known to us by reasons and requires the observance of the moral order. It may also be defined as the eternal law as far as it is made known by human reason. By the eternal law, we mean all that God necessarily wills for eternity. That part of the eternal law which reason reveals as directive of human acts, we call the natural law. Means that natural law comes from God's divine plan and intelligence. It shows how God designed everything with purpose and order. Through our human reason, we can understand this wisdom. It teaches us what is morally right and wrong. In simple terms, God's wisdom guides our minds to do good and avoid evil, even without written laws. Eternal law, divine law, and natural law. Eternal law is what God's will for creation. We are part of God's creation, and so we are part of God's eternal law. Although we may not be able to fully understand the eternal law through reason, we have a grasp or sense of it. This is natural law. So, eternal law is God's overall plan for the whole universe. It includes everything He wills and how all creation should act according to His purpose. Even if human cannot see or understand it fully, we still follow it because it keeps everything in harmony under God's control. Divine law, a law decreed by Almighty God. It is a divine law, one established by God Himself. So, divine law comes directly from God and can be found in the Bible and religious teachings. It gives people specific guidance on how to live rightly and be closer to God. It helps us understand His will more clearly. Natural law, the part of the eternal law revealed to us by reason which directs human acts. Natural law is based on human reason and is meant to guide people to know what is good and what is evil. So, natural law is our human participation in God's eternal law. It is what our reason naturally understands, that we should do good, avoid evil, respect others, and live justly. It helps us act according to what is moral and fair even if no one tells us directly. Saint Thomas Aquinas quote on human inclination to do good. There is in people an inclination to good, according to the nature of one's reason, which nature is proper to that individual. Thus, a person has a natural inclination to know the truth about God and to live in society. And in this respect, whatever pertains to this inclination belongs to the natural law. For instance, to shun ignorance, to avoid offending those among whom one has to live, and other such things regarding the above inclination. This means that every person is born with a natural desire to do good and seek the truth. God created us with reason so that we can recognize right from wrong. Because of this, humans are naturally drawn to goodness, knowledge, and living peacefully with others.
So bright morning everyone. Today I'm going to discuss about the second part of the topic, meaning of natural law and other laws, from Charles Coppens. So there are 4 types of laws: the divine law, natural law, positive law, and human law. So first we have the divine law. The divine law is the historical laws of Scripture given to us through God's revelation. It's found in the Scriptures, meaning it's the set of moral and religious rules that God revealed to guide human behavior. For example, the 10 Commandments are part of the divine law because they were given directly by God. The second, we have the natural law. Natural law maintains that these rules of right and wrong are inherent in people and are not created. It's not written in any book or imposed by people. Instead, it's the idea that we all naturally know what's right and wrong through reason and conscience. For example, without being told, people know that killing or stealing is wrong. That's natural law. The third, we have the positive law. Positive law refers to human-made laws that oblige or specify an action, and it also describes the establishment of specific rights for an individual or group. But actually, positive law can also come from God. For example, some laws in Scripture were explicitly given by Him. So positive law basically means any law that's formally laid down or commanded, whether by humans or by God. Examples of this are traffic laws, curfews, or classroom rules. The last, we have human law. Human law is a law that is made by humans, usually considered in opposition to concepts like natural law, or it's meant to maintain order and protect the common good in society. For example, the Constitution or laws against theft and murder are human laws. To summarize, we have the key differences. Divine law comes from God's will and revelation. Natural law comes from the nature of man as created by God, knowable by human reason. Positive law comes from the explicit command, either divine or human. And human law comes from legitimate lawmakers.
So my topic is about eternal law versus natural law versus human law. Number 1, eternal law. Eternal law is God's law, His divine wisdom and will that governs all creation. It represents God's ultimate plan and order for the universe, because human cannot fully grasp it because it belongs to God's eternal wisdom. Number 2, natural law. Natural law is a share of the eternal law that humans can understand through reason, because it tells us to do good and avoid evil. And it reflects God's moral order, and it's written in human nature, meaning we are born with the ability to know what is right and wrong. Number 3, human law. Human law is created by people to maintain order in society. It is derived from natural law and should promote the common good. However, if a human law goes against reason or natural law, it is not a true law. Relationship between reason, morality, and God's plan. Number 1, reason. Reason is the tool God gave humans to understand what is moral right. Number 2, morality. Morality is our way to follow God's plan by choosing good and avoid evil. When we use our reason correctly, we align our moral actions with God's divine purpose. Therefore, living morally is living accordingly to God's plan for creation. So let's talk about the summary of all ethical frameworks. Number one is virtue or character ethics. So its main idea is the ethical person develops good character and practices values like honesty, courage, and kindness. And its goal purpose is to achieve happiness or self-fulfillment by realizing one's full potential, the mean between two extremes. Number two, natural law or commandment ethics. So its main idea is what is right follows natural law, do good and avoid evil. And its goal purpose is to live accordingly to God's plan and preserve life, truth, and goodness. And number three is deontological or duty framework. And its main idea is actions are right when done out of duty and with good intentions, not for personal gain. And its goal purpose is to act morally from a sense of obligation and respect for human dignity. Fourth is the utilitarian or theological, and its main idea is the morality of an action depends on its consequences. And its goal purpose is to maximize happiness and reduce suffering. Lastly is love and justice, and its main idea is what is ethical is what is just loving. And lastly, its goal purpose. Its goal purpose is to build relationship in communities grounded in compassion and fairness.
Alright, so in conclusion, moral theories and ethical frameworks play a very important role in guiding our actions and decisions in life. They help us understand the difference between right and wrong, not just through rules, but through reasoning, compassion, and good character. Each theory offers a unique way of viewing moral choices, whether it focuses on virtues, duties, natural laws, the greatest good, or love and justice. These frameworks remind us that being moral is not only about doing what is right, but also about understanding why it is right. By applying these moral principles in real life situations, we learn to act with fairness, respect, and empathy, becoming better individuals who contribute to a more just and caring societies. And that would be all, everyone. I hope you have learned a lot about our topic. And now start to ask yourself or reflect yourself, what should you do or why you should do it. Once again, this is Jason Marikit. Good day and thank you, everyone.